Hi everyone, it's James here. Welcome to another video. Now, this is a video that I've been intending to do for a fair while, but I couldn't do it, and the reason for that is, well, I'll explain now. The idea of the video is to show 10 different records from 10 different cities. So after I had the idea, I sat down and I wrote out a list, and I was gutted because I could only get to nine different records from 9 different cities. I wanted it to be 10. So I knew we were having a VC meetup in Birmingham, and I knew I was going to buy a record or two, which I did. That helped get me up to the magic number. Now, included in the list there is one piece of VCLT, so it's not a record that I bought myself, but it is from a city. Now, the definition of a city in the UK, as far as I know, it's got to be it's a place that has a cathedral. Okay, so a town does not have a cathedral, a city does. That's the definition I'm working with. I might be wrong, I don't know, we'll see. So the first one I'm going to show is Squeeze East Side Story, and this was bought the year of release 1981. Now, I was trying to remember where I bought it from. I grew up in North Wales, just inside Wales, just on the border, and there were two towns, or there was a town and a city, and I lived equidistant between them. There was Wrexham, which is a Tudor town, about 5 miles away, and then that's on the Welsh side. On the English side, heading into England, about the same distance away, there is Chester, which is a very beautiful Roman town, great tourist spot, and we used to go there as well. But the two places, I used to go to one or the other on a Saturday with my parents to do, you know, all the shopping, and they just blur into one in my mind. So I was delighted to discover on the back of this record there was a sticker for Boots the chemist, which used to sell records back in the day. So that's how I've been able to identify that one. Squeeze, East Side Story, like I said, bought when it first came out. I never used to know when new albums were coming out by my favourite artists, and I've got a very clear memory of seizing this one excitedly in the racks. So that was a great day out in Chester with my parents. 1981, I was 10. Okay, fast forward a few years. I went to Lancaster University in 1989, and at some point in 1990 I bought this record. This is Men at Work, Business as Usual, and this came from a little market stand in the market in Lancaster called Hedgehog Records. They're a great little trader, long gone. So Lancaster, which is where I live now, Lancaster is another historic city. We have a cathedral here, we have, you know, an ancient priory on the hill. Lancaster is kind of south of the Lake District, on the west coast of England, kind of northwest England. Yeah, I came here to study in '89, and I used to go down to the market. Didn't buy a lot of records while I was here, but this is one of the ones that I did pick up. And you can see there the princely sum of £4 from Hedgehog Records in Lancaster. Now, at the end of my first year at university, I went to Edinburgh, which is a very fine historic city in Scotland, home to one or two VC members of my acquaintance. And this would have been the summer of 1990, and I picked this record up from either HMV or Virgin, I can't quite remember, but I picked up the Travelling Wilburys, the first album, during the week that I was at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, because Edinburgh has a kind of arts and music festival every summer, and I was there with some student friends doing a kind of silly student show, and I bought the Travelling Wilburys album during that week, so that was a nice thing to get. Classic album. It had come out a couple of years before. I was surprised. It came out in 1988, but I didn't get it until the summer of 1990, so I don't know why I was so late getting to that one, but I was. So there's the Wilburys. Right, so I studied at Lancaster for 3 years and then moved to Leeds, which is a city kind of in the, well, in West Yorkshire. Lived there for many years, and it was a great place to be, great place to shop for records and CDs. And my local Oxfam shop was a marvellous source of cheap vinyl. I picked up pretty much all my David Bowie collection from there. I've just grabbed this one. This cost me £2.50 from the Oxfam shop in Headingley. Like I said, I used to live probably about maybe 10 minutes walk away. So you know, I just used to walk up there, and frequently I would be leaving with bags of records under my arm. This was during the 90s, so it was a period when I was buying a lot of music, new music on CD, but I was also vastly expanding my record collection by picking up lots of cheap used vinyl. So there we go, that was David Bowie, bought from Leeds, probably in about mid-1990s. Okay, now Leeds is not all that far away from a rather famous city called Manchester, and I didn't go to Manchester very often when I lived in Leeds, but I would occasionally catch a train or drive over there, and one shop I used to go to was the Vinyl Exchange in Manchester, and that's where I picked up a nice cheap copy. It's a reissue, bought for £5 of the Bob Dylan album Bringing It All Back Home. And Manchester is a great place to go shopping for records. There was another VC meetup there a while ago. Lots of good shops, lots of good second-hand vinyl and places to go. There's some new record shops there as well. It's quite a big place there, Manchester. It's quite hard to get into and out of, but it's you know, it's definitely a good place to go. They have record fairs there and all sorts. So again, I date this purchase back to the mid-1990s. Bob Dylan, Bringing It All Back Home, bought from Manchester. Right, I've only ever bought one record from London. It probably would have been in the very late 1990s. I used to work in London a fair bit. I used to go down on the train. This is a record I picked up from HMV in London for £19.99. It was an impulse purchase. I remember it very well. It's the Supergrass's 10-inch compilation record, which I have shown a couple of times. It's got some nice button badges on the cover. This is a double 10-inch on clear vinyl, and it contains all their hits and well-known songs. And yeah, I don't know why I never particularly bought records in London. I just think London is a place where you have to know where you're going, and you know, often I was working there, didn't have much time, so I just used to head for HMV or, you know, Virgin Records. So that was just a nice lunchtime purchase, impulse purchase, and a nice collection piece. Okay, I've only ever bought one record in a different country, and I used to think this came from Amsterdam, but actually it came from Paris. I've racked my brains and it definitely comes from Paris. This would have been in the early noughties. I'd hooked up with my partner then. We had a trip to Paris. I remember going to a Paris record shop. I picked this record up. It's not one I had already. It's rather mysteriously priced at 25. I'm not sure what that's all about, whether it was 25 euros. I don't think I would have spent that much on it. Anyway, it's a reissue of the George Harrison album, Dark Horse, and this is still my only copy of that record. Different cover from the original release, but it was a nice thing to find in a Paris record shop. I can picture the shop in my head. I think this record was on the wall, but I've absolutely no memory now of what the shop was. And yeah, that was bought from Paris. Gay Paris, one of my favourite cities. I absolutely love the place. I've not been there for many years. So the last three are moving into very recent territory. This next one is from Sheffield. You know, lots of famous bands come from there. I think Human League, Cabaret Voltaire, Pulp. It's a great place, great kind of vibey city. There's an area there called Hunter's Bar, which is a kind of student area. It's full of coffee shops and record shops and charity shops. And I think this might have been last year. I had a nice little run of luck. I found the Tom Verlaine album Flashlight in Sheffield when I was out shopping with my mate Phil, who I still visit there from time to time. Me and Phil, we used to play in a band together. He now lives in Sheffield and he's got a band there now. I go and visit him occasionally. He took me around the charity shops and I picked this one up. Great album actually, it was a really nice thing to find. Tom Verlaine from 1987, and that is Flashlight. Okay, now we come to the VCLT. This is from Sean Whelan, who is a great channel, great young chap on the VC. Check him out, I'll put the link. He does great videos. He sent me a couple of things recently. I do need to catch up and do a proper VC LT video, not just for him but for some other people who've sent me some things, so I'll get to that, okay, soon hopefully. But he sent me a copy of the Anthony Phillips album, The Geese and the Ghost, which was absolutely fantastic to get hold of. I've never heard Anthony Phillips's solo work, never owned any on any format, so that was a great record to get. Bangor, you might have heard of Bangor. It's in North Wales, and it's the place where the Beatles went in the 60s to see the Maharishi. That's where they got the news of Brian Epstein's death. I have some history with the place. My parents did teacher training there back in the 1960s, and we used to holiday in a little place just up from the coast there, so it brings back great memories. And this was not bought from the famous record shop which used to be in Bangor called Cobb Records. It was bought from another shop. The name escapes me. Sean has told me. I'll put it down below as a subtitle. So yeah, there we go. Anthony Phillips from Bangor. So we'll come up to date. Fantastic VC meetup last week with some of the guys. I'll talk about it in a separate video. We went to a couple of record shops. I picked up some great things, including this Rykuda album, Boomer's Story, which is so new to me that I've not even got it on the turntable yet. Birmingham, absolutely legendary music city. You know, think of Black Sabbath, think of Duran Duran. And all points in between. It was absolutely fantastic to go there. Not been there for 25 years was the last time, and I'd never been shopping for records in Birmingham. So John Downing and Steve Whitty took the gang to a couple of record shops, and I made a few purchases, and I'll be showing those in due course. So that brings the story up to date. Rykuda and Boomer's Story, bought in Birmingham. So there we go. I'd be delighted if anybody else can do it. 10 different records in 10 different cities. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care, folks. Bye bye.